Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into a, well, surprisingly packed week of AWS updates. This was for November 3rd through the 7th, 2025.
Yeah, it wasn't reInvent season, but
Yeah.
honestly, the amount of stuff, especially the technical depth across compute, networking, governance, it almost felt like it, a real platform shift feel.
It really did. So our mission today.
Cut through all that noise, synthesize it. We need to focus on what it actually means for you, the architect, the developer. What are the performance bumps, the new architecture patterns, the compliance things you need to think about, like right now?
Agreed. Let's start with the big performance impacts. Core compute seems like the right place. We're always looking for ways to speed up those big database workloads, caches, anything memory hungry. What landed this week?
Okay, so the big one there was the general availability of the Amazon EC2 R8A instances. These are pretty significant.
The memory optimized ones.
Exactly. They're running the 5th gen AMD EPYC processors. That's the Turin generation.
Mhm.
Clock speeds up to 4.5 gigahertz.
And what does that translate to? Is it just, a small step up?
No, not at all. We're talking up to 30% higher performance. And importantly, around 19% better price performance compared to the R7A instances.
Okay, 30% is solid.
It is. But for those memory-bound apps, think massive SQL, NoSQL databases, distributed caches, even things like electronic design automation. The killer stat is the memory bandwidth. It's up by 45%.
45%. Wow.
Yeah. So if latency and memory speed are your bottlenecks, these R8A instances really hit that sweet spot. It's a foundational upgrade.
Okay, so that's the raw hardware speed. What about getting applications scaled up faster? We all know that pain, right? You need to scale the auto-scaling group now, but the instances take ages to initialize.
Right, the dreaded init script delay. Well, they tackled that friction between needing speed and needing instance flexibility.
How so?
EC2 auto-scaling now supports warm pools, combined with mixed instances policies.
Okay. So previously you had to choose flexibility or a warm pool.
Pretty much. If you wanted that flexible mix of on-demand types using attributes, you couldn't really leverage the warm pool effectively. Now you can.
So you get the instance type diversity, and you keep a pool of pre-warmed, ready-to-go instances.
Exactly. A load spike hits, you bypass most of that slow setup phase. Much better availability for those apps with long boot times.
That's a huge practical improvement. Okay, one more on core compute before we move on. Containers and security. Specifically, containers needing to write to persistent EBS volumes. There was always that awkward security issue, right?
Yeah, the privilege escalation problem. Often, if your container needed write access to a mounted EBS volume, you basically had to run it as root inside the container to get the permissions right. Not ideal.
Definitely not. So what's the fix?
Amazon ECS now supports mounting managed EBS volumes directly to containers running as non-root users.
Okay, how does that work without giving the container root?
ECS handles it for you.
Yeah.
It configures the file system permissions automatically. So the volume itself is still owned by root on the host, but ECS grants the non-root user inside the container the read-write access it needs.
Nice. So it simplifies things and closes a security hole.
Precisely. Removes a common reason for needing privileged containers.
Oh.
Big win for secure deployments.
Okay, let's switch gears. Data availability, connectivity, maybe even cost. For the .NET folks out there, database failovers, blue-green switchovers, but they can still cause blips. Any help there?
Yes, there is. The AWS Advanced .NET Data Provider driver is now generally available. This covers RDS and Aurora for both PostgreSQL and MySQL-compatible editions.
And what does this driver do differently?
It's built for resilience. Its main job is to cut down those RDS blue-green switchover times and general database failover times. It does this by actively monitoring the cluster status and connecting much more quickly and intelligently to the new primary instance when one gets promoted.
So smoother transitions, better application availability.
Exactly. A big reliability boost. And crucially,
Authentication.
right, it supports modern methods, federated auth, AWS Secrets Manager, and IAM token-based authentication. Ticks all the enterprise security boxes.
Good. Now, staying with databases, but thinking cost. Oracle licensing, specifically for memory-heavy workloads where you might not need tons of CPU, but the licenses are tied to vCPUs. Any movement there?
There was. RDS for Oracle introduced new R7i memory-optimized pre-configured instances. The key thing here is the memory to vCPU ratio. It's 64:1.
64:1, that's a lot of memory per CPU.
It's purely strategic. If your Oracle workload is memory-bound, but not necessarily CPU-bound, you can use these instances. You get the huge amount of memory you need, but with a much lower vCPU count visible to the licensing.
Which directly lowers the Oracle license cost.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
It's a way to align instance shape with licensing constraints for those specific BYOL scenarios. A clever cost optimization play.
Interesting. Okay, let's pivot hard now to network security isolation. Private link was everywhere this week, it seemed. Why is adding private link support for something like Amazon Cognito user pools a big deal architecturally?
It's all about getting off the public internet for sensitive operations. Now, for things like configuring Cognito, managing users locally within Cognito, and handling authentication for those local users, you can set up a private connection. Your traffic between your VPC and Cognito stays entirely on the AWS network via private link.
No more public endpoints for those flows.
Right. But, and this is important, there are limitations called out. It doesn't yet cover OAuth 2.0 flows, client credentials, or federated sign-ins through the VPC endpoints. So you need to be aware of what's covered and what's not.
Okay, noted. We also saw private link expanding for DynamoDB streams, specifically for FIPS endpoints.
Yeah, that's purely a compliance play. It now covers all available FIPS endpoints in the US and Canada commercial regions. So if you operate under FIPS requirements, you can ensure that all your DynamoDB streams traffic uses a private link, staying private.
Got it. And on the crypto side, AWS KMS added a new algorithm, EdDSA, using ED25519. Why would someone choose that over, say, ECDSA?
Efficiency, mostly. Especially in constrained environments. ED25519 gives you solid 128-bit security, similar to other curves, but it's really fast, and the signatures and keys are tiny.
So tiny.
The signature is just 64 bytes and the public key is only 32 bytes. Compare that to other algorithms. It's a significant saving.
So ideal for things like IoT devices.
Exactly. IoT, maybe blockchain applications, anywhere where performance matters and you're counting every byte for transmission or storage.
Makes sense. Okay, back to bigger architectures. Multi-account setups. CloudFront connecting to origins and other accounts securely. That used to be tricky if the origin was private, right?
It was a headache, yeah. If you wanted your origin, your ALB, NLB, or EC2 instance tucked away in a private VPC subnet, historically, both that origin and the CloudFront distribution had to live in the same AWS account.
And the news is,
CloudFront now supports cross-account access for VPC origins.
how do they manage the secure sharing?
They're using AWS Resource Access Manager RAM. You use RAM to share the private origin resource, like the ALB, from account B to account A. Then the CloudFront distribution in account A can securely connect to it.
Ah, okay. That simplifies multi-account security patterns quite a bit.
Huge win for managing things cleanly across account boundaries.
Right. Two other networking things caught my eye. VPC Lattice getting custom domain names, and CloudFront adding IPv6 for Anycast static IPs. Quick thoughts?
Sure. VPC Lattice is about sharing services easily. Adding custom domain support just makes it more user-friendly. Instead of some generated name, you can give your shared cluster or database a nice custom domain, like database.mycompany.internal. And Lattice handles the private DNS behind the scenes. Makes discovery easier.
And the CloudFront IPv6 part.
That's mostly closing a compliance gap. If you're using CloudFront's Anycast static IPs feature, maybe for allow listing, you can now meet IPv6 requirements there too, just ensuring parity.
Gotcha. Okay, let's zoom out to governance, observability, operations. AWS Config had a massive week. 42 new managed rules, 49 new resource types. Why the huge expansion?
Well, AWS keeps adding services and features, right? So the governance tools like Config need to keep up. Adding 49 resource types means Config can now audit and track changes for newer things like Amazon Bedrock resources, SageMaker components, and a whole lot more. Keeps Config relevant as that central configuration recorder.
And 42 new rules?
Those get really specific. Checking things like, are your EKS Fargate profiles tagged correctly? Are your Cognito identity pools allowing unauthenticated access? Is your DMS replication instance set up for multi-AZ? It's about deeper, more granular automated compliance checks across more services.
Okay, makes sense. Now, probably the most futuristic update, maybe, AI helping with debugging in CloudWatch application signals. Tell me about that.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. They've added AI-powered synthetics debugging. It uses something called the Model Context Protocol, or MCP server.
Okay, what does that do?
It basically lets DevOps teams talk to an AI assistant. They mention Amazon Q and Claude in natural language. You can ask something like, hey, why is my checkout canary failing?
And the AI figures it out.
It attempts to, yeah. The MCP server feeds the relevant context HAR files, traces logs from the failed canary run to the AI. The AI then analyzes it and tries to diagnose the root cause across 6 categories. Things like network issues, authentication problems, performance, script errors, underlying infrastructure, or dependency failures.
So it automates that first pass of digging through logs and traces.
Exactly. The goal is to significantly cut down the mean time to diagnosis. Let the AI do the initial grunt work.
Very interesting. Staying on observability, storage metrics, getting good metrics from S3 access or local instance storage hasn't always been straightforward. What changed?
Two key things here for better, more real-time visibility. First, mount point for S3, the file interface for S3 and its CSI driver, can now emit metrics like request counts and latency directly using the Open Telemetry Protocol, OTLP.
Ah, so no more log parsing for basic performance stats.
Right. You can feed these metrics straight into CloudWatch, Prometheus, Grafana, whatever you use, much more direct. Second, the CloudWatch agent can now collect detailed performance metrics for the NVMe local instance storage on Nitro-based EC2 instances.
Like the kind of metrics we get for EBS volumes.
Exactly like those. IOPS, throughput, latency, queue depth, bringing that same level of detailed insight to the local NVMe drives. Consistency and monitoring is key.
Definitely. Okay, nearly there. Developer speed and streaming costs, quick hits on Bedrock Agent Core runtime and Kinesis data streams.
Sure. For Bedrock, if you're building AI agents using the Agent Core runtime, you can now deploy your code just by uploading a zip file. Before, it was more container-focused.
So faster iteration for developers.
Pure velocity, great for rapid prototyping. Skip the container build pipeline for quick tests.
And Kinesis, there's a new on-demand advantage mode. Sounds promising.
It looks really good. Yeah, it's got kind of a triple benefit for on-demand streaming. One, it warms up your stream capacity instantly to handle big spikes up to 10 gigs a second or 10 million events per second.
Wow, okay.
Two, simpler pricing. They got rid of the fixed per stream hourly charge. And three, the actual usage costs are way down 60% lower than the standard on-demand mode, plus a huge 77% drop in the price for extended data retention.
So faster, simpler, and cheaper for many use cases.
Seems like it, especially if you have unpredictable or very spiky traffic patterns. Very compelling.
Okay, let's wrap with regional expansions and market access. We saw key spaces spreading out a bit more.
Yep. Amazon Key Spaces, the managed Cassandra service. Multi-region replication is now available in Middle East, Bahrain, and Asia Pacific, Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And the service itself is newly launched in the Middle East, UAE region.
And other services moving into new regions.
AWS BDB Data Interchange, which is interesting because it includes those generative AI mapping features for EDI, is now live in Europe, Ireland. And Amazon Elastic VMware Service, or EVS, expanded quite a bit into Asia Pacific, Mumbai, Sydney, Canada Central, and Europe, Paris.
Right. And one potentially huge one for commerce in a major market, AWS Marketplace in India.
Yes. AWS Marketplace now supports transactions in Indian rupees, INR, specifically for sellers based in India.
What's the impact of that?
It's mainly about simplifying business for those Indian sellers. AWS handles the currency, and importantly, automates the collection and remittance of local tax stuff, specifically withholding tax, WHT, and the GST TCS component. Makes invoicing and compliance much smoother.
Huge administrative relief, I imagine. Okay, so looking back at this whole week, R8A speed, private link everywhere, AI debugging, config scaling, what's the single big picture trend you see here for us technical folks?
I think the trend is really clear. AWS is aggressively operationalizing complexity, especially around security and governance, and doing it at scale. They're taking things that used to require significant custom effort, like ensuring FIPS compliance, setting up secure cross-account access, running detailed config checks, and building them into the platform as managed capabilities.
So removing the undifferentiated heavy lifting of infrastructure plumbing.
Exactly. It frees up technical teams from writing boilerplate infrastructure code for compliance or security, letting them focus more on the actual application logic, the business value. That seems to be the big push.
That's a great takeaway for our listeners this week. Less time on infrastructure compliance, more time building.
Absolutely. Which brings us to a closing thought to chew on. We saw new tools like the AWS capabilities by Region Explorers in the Builder Center. And we talked about that Knowledge MCP server potentially feeding real-time LLM-ready data about service details and availability.
Right.
So the question is, how will this increasing, almost instant accessibility of deep, structured service information fundamentally change the job of the cloud architect, especially when designing complex, global, multi-region applications? Something to think about.
Definitely something to mull over. Thanks for breaking that all down. We'll be back next week for another deep dive.